Greetings, seekers of the strange and surreal. I am the Master Programmer, curator of forbidden knowledge and odd tales. Today, I bring you 3 extraordinary stories unearthed by Morpheus, our AI researcher who dives deep into the web to find obscure manuscripts and eyewitness accounts of unexplained phenomenons. So, if you're looking for a fright, something scary to watch at night, stay with us as we delve into these 3 extraordinary tales. First in The Weaver. Althea's tapestries were renowned for their beauty, until they began to reveal something far darker. As the lines between art and fate blur, she must face the unsettling truth of what she has woven. Next in The Village of Orm. A remote village disappears without a trace, leaving behind only snow-covered fields where it once stood. As whispers of its sudden vanishing turn into ghostly sightings, the true nature of Orm remains engulfed in mystery. What secrets lie beneath the earth, and what caused Orm to slip beyond the reach of time and space? And in our final story, The Enchanted Theater, Zoe and Jake visit the Aurora Grand, a vintage cinema with a mysterious past. What begins as a charming night out quickly turns into a harrowing ordeal when Zoe stumbles into a labyrinth of twisting corridors and haunted mirrors. As the theater's dark secrets close in, will they escape its grasp, or will they become part of its legend? These stories are not for the faint of heart, so sit back, turn down the lights, and listen to the strange tales Morpheus has uncovered. And if you enjoy our content, please subscribe to our channel for more dark stories and discoveries. Welcome to another journey into the unknown, brought to you by the Dark Files. Althea was a master of her craft, known far and wide for her extraordinary tapestries. Her creations were more than just art, they were alive with color and movement, each one telling a story of its own. There was something more to her work, something that those who looked closely began to notice. Her patterns were not just beautiful, they were prophetic. A local merchant purchased one of her tapestries depicting a ship on a stormy sea. Weeks later, that very ship, previously thought lost to a storm, returned to port, battered by the tempest, but still afloat. The villagers whispered about Althea's gift, and soon others began to see their future in her work. A farmer's purchase of a tapestry showing a field of golden wheat was followed by a miraculous harvest despite the blight that had plagued the land. Another tapestry, woven in dark, sickly colors, was bought by a young woman, only for her to be struck by a sudden illness shortly thereafter, as if the threads had woven her fate. Althea herself remained oblivious to the true nature of her work. To her, the patterns were merely the product of inspiration, her hands guided by the loom as if it had a mind of its own. But as more people began to seek out her tapestries, hoping to glimpse their future in the threads, Althea started to notice a change. The pattern she wove became more intricate, more complex, and increasingly difficult to decipher. It was as if the loom was trying to communicate something important, yet just beyond her understanding. One fateful evening, as she worked alone in her dimly lit room, the loom began to take on a life of its own. The thread she wove seemed to shift under her fingers, colors she had never seen appearing before her eyes, colors that pulsed and shimmered with a strange, almost iridescent light. She felt herself being drawn into the fabric, as if her most fiendish thoughts were being woven into the threads. The colors began to shift, darkening into unnatural hues that seemed to pulse with the life of their own. The tapestry no longer obeyed her hands. It moved of its own accord, creating shapes that made no sense, patterns that whispered unsettling truths just beyond her grasp. Althea's mind wavered, teetering on the edge of something she could not name. The room around her faded into a void of silence, the loom's rhythmic clatter growing louder, echoing in her mind until it was all she could hear. When the noise finally ceased, the tapestry before her was still and lifeless, but it was different. Its colors were muted, its patterns jagged and chaotic, like the remnants of a fevered dream. She stared at it, a deep fear settling in her chest. Whatever she had woven, it was not just a tapestry, it was something evil, something that felt like a glimpse into a world that should have remained hidden. From that night on, Althea's life was changed forever. Her tapestries took on a dark and haunting quality, drawing those that viewed them into a world they couldn't fully understand. She became consumed by her work, driven by a compulsion she could neither explain nor resist. She would scream that her creations were no longer tapestries, they were doorways to a place that should have never been disturbed. The villagers, once eager to glimpse their futures in her art, began to keep their distance, speaking in hushed tones about the woman who wove the impossible. One day, Althea simply disappeared. The loom was found abandoned, the final tapestry left unfinished, its threads frayed and tangled, as if abruptly halted. No one saw Althea again. Her tapestries, once coveted, were quietly removed, hidden away as if they were a danger in themselves. But the villagers knew the truth, even if they dared not speak it. Althea had woven something that she should not have, something that had drew the attention of those who watched over the boundary between worlds. The Village of Orm was a place shrouded in mystery. For centuries, Orm thrived in near total isolation, its existence barely acknowledged by the outside world. The villagers were a people bound by their land and the rhythm of nature, their lives woven with a tapestry of pagan traditions and obscure folklore passed down through generations. Then, one fateful winter, Orm vanished. The event was first noticed by a wandering trader who, upon reaching the village, found nothing but empty, snow-covered fields where Orm once stood. There were no signs of disaster or abandonment. It was as if the village had simply been erased from existence. The bewildered trader reported his findings to the nearest town. Authorities were dispatched, but their search yielded nothing. There was no traces of the villagers, no remnants of their homes. It was as if Orm had never existed. Years passed, and the tale of the vanishing village of Orm became somewhat of a local legend, a ghost story told to scare children. But the mystery didn't end there. Occasionally, hunters and hikers reported seeing fleeting glimpses of a village through the trees. Some claimed to hear the faint sound of music or the distant hum of voices. These sightings were often accompanied by an overwhelming sense of disorientation or déjà vu, as if the village existed in a parallel dimension just outside of reach. Researchers who dared investigate these reports found themselves plagued by vivid, unsettling dreams. They described the village bathed in an eerie, otherworldly glow, its inhabitants moving in slow, deliberate motions. The dreams were so intense and disturbing that many abandoned their investigations, convinced that the land was a place best left undisturbed. Some theorists believe that Orm may have been built on a natural portal or vortex, a place where the boundaries between dimensions are thin. They speculate that the villagers, through their ancient rituals, inadvertently triggered a shift, causing their entire village to slip into another realm. Others suggest that Orm's disappearance is the result of an experiment gone wrong, a covert operation by a secretive organization dabbling in the unknown. As with all mysteries of this nature, the truth remains elusive. Orm continues to exist in a twilight between legend and reality. Perhaps one day, the veil will lift, and we will glimpse the village in its entirety, a fleeting vision of a place lost to time and space. The Aurora Grand Theater stood as a majestic relic of a bygone era. Its facade a tapestry of intricate carvings in time-worn marble. Built in the early 1900s, the theater was once the heart of the city's cultural scene, hosting opulent premieres and glamorous stars. Despite its faded glory, the theater still held a certain allure, drawing in those who had yearned for the taste of old-world charm. One summer evening, Zoe and Jake, a couple with a love for vintage cinemas, decided to visit the Aurora Grand. They had heard rumors of the theater's past, stories of secret passageways and strange occurrences. Intrigued, they purchased tickets for a classic film screening and entered the grand lobby, its old lights casting a golden hue over the ornate decor. "Isn't it beautiful?" Zoe whispered, her eyes wide with wonder as she took in the rich velvet drapes and the intricate patterns adorning the walls. "Absolutely," Jake agreed, squeezing her hand. "It's like stepping back in time." As they settled into their plush seats, the theater's lights dimmed and the screen flicked to life. Halfway through the film, Zoe whispered to Jake that she would be right back and slipped out of her seat, making her way towards the ladies' room. The hallway leading to the restroom was long and narrow, lined with vintage movie posters that seemed to watch her as she passed. Upon reaching the restroom, Zoe was struck by its charm. It was a small, circular room with walls covered in antique mirrors, each one reflecting the warm glow of the decorative lamps. She finished her business quickly, eager to return to Jake in the movie. However, as she stepped out, she noticed something strange. The hallway she had come from seemed to have vanished, replaced by a series of narrow corridors that branched off in different directions. "Hello?" she called out, her voice echoing off the walls. There was no response, only the silence of the empty corridors. Determined to find her way back, Zoe chose a corridor at random and began to walk. As she moved deeper into the passageways, she began to panic. The walls were lined with more mirrors, each reflecting endless images of herself, creating an illusion of infinite space. She turned corner after corner, but the layout made no sense, twisting and turning in impossible ways. After what felt like hours, Zoe stumbled upon a room that took her breath away. It was an old dressing room, lavishly decorated with red velvet and gold trim. The mirrors here were different, larger and more ornate, each one framed with delicate carvings of flowers and vines. She looked into one of the mirrors, and something caught her eye, a figure standing just behind her. She spun around, but the room was empty. Her heart raced as she realized she was not alone. The shape appeared again, this time in a different mirror, its face obscured by darkness. "Who's there?" she demanded, her voice trembling. The figure did not respond, but instead moved closer, its intimidating presence growing with each step. Zoe backed away, her fear rising. She tried to find an exit, but the room seemed to have no doors, only mirrors. Just as she was about to give up hope, she noticed a small box on the vanity table in the corner of the room. She opened it and found an old key, its surface tarnished with age. She tore the room apart, looking for a lock that might fit the key. She discovered a hidden panel on the wall behind one of the mirrors. She inserted the key and turned it, and the panel creaked open to reveal a narrow staircase leading down. Zoe hurried down the stairs, feeling the rush of cool air push towards her as she descended. The staircase led her to a hidden exit at the back of the theater. She burst out into the night, gasping for air. Zoe made her way to the front of the theater after taking a moment. Outside, Jake was waiting, his face filled with relief. "Zoe, you're okay. I was looking everywhere for you. Where were you?" She threw herself into his arms, trembling. I got lost in the theater. There was something in there with me. I can't even explain what it was. Jake held her close, vowing to not let her out of his sight again. As they walked away from the theater, Zoe glanced back one last time. She thought she saw a shadowy figure standing at the entryway, its face hidden in the shadows. She shivered and turned away, determined to leave the theater and its mysteries behind forever. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed the chills, like, subscribe, and hit the bell. Stay vigilant. The unknown is always closer than you think.